So commissions is when you know what a commission is. You're paid a certain percentage for every sale you make, for every policy you sell, for whatever. And you can do commission any way you want. I can put you on straight commission. I can put you on base plus commission. I can give you a lot of companies that are trying to start, I don't think it's something like financial products or financial advising or investment advisor or insurance sales. They'll give you like a year of base salary and teach you how to cold call and everything, and then kind of wean you off of the salary and end you up on straight commission. That's all fine. They can do whatever they want. Again, as long as it's, applied consistently and everybody's under the same parameters. And you pay me minimum wage. In any situation, you got to pay me minimum wage. You can't put me on straight commission and have me out on the car lot 40 hours a week making, $6.29, right? You've got to get me minimum wage in some way, shape, or form. So let's try this one. I hate when the answer's already up there. Why that's there. Let's try this one. So I sold 50 or 40,000 a product, and I'm told that I've got to sell 31.5 just to keep my job. And I get 2% in excess of this quota. So that's my commission. Once you hit quota, you get incentivized. You get 2%. And my bi-weekly paycheck is calculated on an annual base of 30,000. What did I make? Well, your first calculation, let's write these down together. What's your first calculation going to be? What divided by what?
30,000 divided by 26.
Yeah, obviously. Just get his base salary, his regular old base. Bi-weekly is paid how many times a year? Yeah. And once you get his regular gross paycheck that he gets every 2 weeks no matter what, then you can figure out his commission. And be mindful what number you're calculating that 2% on. And then I think you're just adding them together. So that's just an example. There's no standard way to do commission. I can set the plan up any way that I want that works to incentivize my employees and, of course, complies with the Fair Labor Standards Act. So that was just an example. So my check was $1323.85, right? Non-discretionary bonus. A non-discretionary bonus is something that is included in your employment contract. Safety awards, if we have less than a 2% injury rate, or you get X percentage on your check, or we accomplish less than 1% defects or warranty work, you get X percent. So it's written into your employment contract. I don't get to decide whether to bonus you out or not. It's a part of our employment agreement. Those numbers have to be included in the calculation of your base rate to calculate overtime. So I'm going to pay you $10 an hour, but I've got all these incentives built in for quality control and safety and blah, blah, blah. That's mandatory. It's non-discretionary. So you really end up making usually $14 an hour. I've got to calculate overtime on the 14, not the 10. That's different if I get to discretionarily bonus you out. In other words, hey, you guys are great. I'm making a ton of money. I'm going to give you some money. Right? That's discretionary. Then I don't have to include that in overtime because it's not an expected part of your base wage. You understand the difference? Okay. Profit sharing plans, those essentially are a way for me to share my earnings with you, which in a lot of HR literature would want to do because that incentivizes you to work smarter and harder for me and everybody flourishes. And I can do that any way I want. I can pay you cash. I can put money directly into a corporate retirement plan. I can put it in something called an ESOP, an employee stock option plan, which many, many companies do. It's not so big around here because we don't have a lot of big publicly traded companies. But if you work in an urban area with a lot of publicly traded companies, that's a huge way to compensate people, right? Because then they want to stay and work harder and get their stock up. So there's a lot of different ways I can do that. Okay, I would like today, please bear with me, I'm going to use up the last 6 minutes here, and introduce our new chapter, which is on Social Security taxes. Now, this should be just completely review because you just spit it out for me on a quiz. But here are our rates. 6.2 plus 1.45. So 7.65 each. And that never changes except for if you make over 200 single or 250 married, then you've got to pay an extra 0.9% into Medicare that your employer does not match. Shockingly, this did not go away with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. Trump did not like this. He wanted to get it out of there. And it, for whatever reason, I mean, I'm sure there was, a bazillion hours of bargaining, or not really, it passed in 50 days, which is pretty extraordinary. We've since found out that very few of the members of Congress actually read the whole tax bill. It was just too much for such a short time period, which is just all unbelievable. But this didn't go away. It's still here. So be aware of that. When you see somebody making over 200, you got to ask, are they single or married? If they're single, you got to calculate that 0.9. If they're married, you don't need to worry until they get to 250. And the employer does not match. It's actually one of the pieces that funds the government's subsidy of health insurance premiums. Does anybody know what did get hit in the health insurance program on the Tax Cut and Jobs Act?
The mandates.
Yeah, the mandates are going away, but that's not until next year. We still have mandates in 2018. The mandates aren't going away until 2019. Again, timed with the midterm elections 2018. Okay, this is all my cynical little underpinings on the side, so forgive me. SECA. It took 16 years for Congress to figure out, oh my gosh, FICA doesn't cover self-employed people. Because if you don't have an employer, nobody's paying in or withholding. So 16 years later, 1951, they passed SECA. Right? That's a 15.3% tax. That's a huge hit if you're self-employed. Okay, because you're paying both parts, aren't you? And if you hit more than the 200,000, you got to take the single, 250 married, you got to take the 0.9 additionally. Okay? This is a tax, the second bullet here, upon the net earnings of self-employed. What do I mean by net earnings? After you take all your deductions. So I've got my little tax practice. Say I bill $8,000 and I pay a couple thousand for software and supplies and blah, 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 blah. My net earnings is $6,000. That's what you pay the 15.3 on, not the amount that you billed. Okay. And then we know this, the 200,000. Okay, basically there's three issues. Are you an employee or are you self-employed? If you're an employee, you only pay one share. If you're self-employed, you pay two. Can you already see where the issue is going to be if you're going to potentially work for somebody, that there's a gray area of independent or employee? You're going to be like, I'm an employee. They're going to be like, you're independent, right? So that's just a natural dichotomy, isn't there? Is what you're doing considered employment, and is what I'm getting paid considered taxable wages? And here's a link to the Social Security site. They are supposedly now, Congress and all their wisdom, are turning their attention to Medicare and Social Security. Now that we've got all the tax cuts through, let's start cutting those benefits, right? So we'll see. Stay tuned. That one's not so important. Okay. Certain things are covered by FICA regardless. In other words, in no situation can you call me independent and throw me into SECA if I'm one of these things. If I'm a full-time life insurance salesperson, by nature, I'm covered by FICA. If I drive a food or beverage truck on commission, like I'm a Schwann's driver, right, then I'm an employee. If I travel and sell something, employee. And if I work at home, like stuff envelopes or assemble things or whatever, you've got to pay me as an employee. You can't call me independent. Okay, here's some more specific situations as regards FICA. If you're a government employee, there's certain classes of government employees that don't pay into OASDI and HI, like our congressmen and women. They've got their own retirement system. We muck about with ours, but they've got their own. Patriots, if you come and work here in America and retain your citizenship somewhere else, and you're in one of the 20 countries specified under this act, you don't have to pay FICA, right? Because you're going to go back to Canada or Mexico or Sweden or wherever. So you may be exempt. Oh, sorry. Last two. Expatriates are subject to FICA. If I go work in Kuwait for a year, I've still got to pay FICA. Why? Probably coming back here and collecting Social Security at some point. And in family employees, this is a tax planning technique where if I have kids working for me under 21 years old in my own business, I don't have to pay FICA on them. Okay. All right, so just read chapter 3 for next, what day are we on, Tuesday? Read for Thursday, please.
So I was going to ask you,
We'll see you then.
will the homework for the week always be the
No.